The 80s is my favorite decade for movies of all time, so I thought it would be a great idea if we did a video where we talked about my favorite movie from every year in the 80s. So from 1980 to 1989, and this is a idea that came up from as far as I know, from a great YouTuber called Film Kid, and he started this thing and he's been doing it for a few videos now with from the 90s and 2000s and blah blah blah. So I thought it would be a great idea if I did the same thing. He is a great YouTuber. Go check him out. The link will be down below in the description. And with all that said, let's get started. For 1980, I went with The Empire Strikes Back. Possibly the most iconic movie of all time. It is up there. It is, in terms of IMDb, one of the greatest movies of all time. And if you argue that this is better than the original Star Wars, I won't argue. It is close. I think I preferably prefer the original slightly, but I think that this one is probably the best. It is definitely the one that most people would say is the best, and is the one that has so many iconic moments, like the one of the greatest twists of all time. And I really wish I could go back in time to see what people's reaction was to that, to see if it was what people were like, because that would have been awesome to see. And there's just so many fun moments in this. It's very rewatchable. The entire Star Wars trilogy is just so rewatchable. This may be the least rewatchable out of all of them, because I think Return of the Jedi is probably a bit more lighthearted than this one, so it's a bit more rewatchable. But this is still a fun one, and I think that this is probably a perfect movie. It's a movie where C-3PO and R2-D2 are always fun together. They have a nice little thing in this, and then C-3PO gets himself destroyed or whatever. And then you have that image of like a Chewbacca carrying him on his back. That's hilarious. And let's just say C-3PO is he can be annoying at times, but he's still fun. Luke is treated a lot better in this. I think Yoda is a great addition. So this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and also definitely one of the best of all time. So for 1980, this is my favorite movie of 1980. For 1981, come on, we all knew it was going to be here, but it is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I said 1981, right? I think so. Yeah. So, anyway, Raiders of the Lost Ark is also one of the most iconic movies of all time. Once again, a movie with Harrison Ford. He was in Empire Strikes Back, if you didn't know, which you should if you're a nerd. So, just so you know, this is a fantastic movie where this is easily just action set piece that is just so iconic, famous, memorable, or been parodied so many times after action set piece, memorable moment that has been parodied several times. There's not a single action scene I can think of besides like maybe one alone that I had not either seen before or that had been parodied before on something I had seen. It is just so awesome. Like all the moments on here. There was also a movie called Chicken Little, which I enjoy a lot more than most people, but is not necessarily a good film. There's like a moment in the film where they actually are playing Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is funny because it's an animated film, and I had no idea what that is. I think I knew it was Indiana Jones or something, but I did not know which one it was, but I then found out. So it was amazing seeing this film. I loved it, and it is a very iconic film and one of the greatest of all time. For 1982 is First Blood, my third favorite film of all time, and one I just did a watch party on. By the way, remember, you guys, you need to watch Rambo First Blood Part 2 if you've not already, if you want to be a part of the chat in my First Blood Part 2 watch along, and same thing with the other 3 sequels besides First Blood Part 2. So get on to that. And also, First Blood is just such an iconic movie. I absolutely loved it the first time I watched it, and it just gets better on every rewatch. I think that Stallone's performance, this might be his best performance in my opinion. Well, mostly because of the last few minutes. His last few minutes where he's just like breaking down. That is Stallone in his great acting. He knows how to act, man. Whether or not you can actually understand him, and if you don't like him because you can't understand him, watch the documentary Sly. He actually reads off of a scripting of what he actually was saying, and he actually is so discernible that you can actually understand what he's saying, and it really hurts hard when you find out what he was actually saying. You can understand the majority of it, but some things that he's like trying to mumble that you can't understand, he actually says it in the Sly documentary. So check that out. And this is just such a fantastic movie that I absolutely love. It's one of the greatest of all time. I absolutely love it. One of my favorite movies of all time. So for 1982, this is easily my number one. Now we are at 1983, and for this one, I'm going with Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi. Uh, this is probably the weak link in the entire original trilogy, while still being a 5 out of 5 for me. I absolutely love this movie. It is a perfect movie in my eyes. Other than a few little nitpicks here and there, that it's one of those movies that the conclusion usually can either be the best in the franchise or it can sometimes be the weak link. This time it's more of the weak link. I still have a lot of fun with it. I think that there's great moments in here that are, when it hits hard. It has some of the greatest moments in the franchise. It has all sorts of great scenes, like the scene with Luke and Vader fighting is awesome. The scene where Vader is lifting up Palpatine, just throws him off, which they then decide to retcon by saying that he has a clone in Rise of Skywalker. Thanks for that so much, Rise of Skywalker, by the way. And also, it's just a film that I find to be fun. I think the Ewoks kind of diminished a bit. I don't mind them as much. I can get over them, but I have to say they come off annoying at points, not as the whole. But once in a while, it feels like they're compromising part of the movie, and I will admit that part with Jabba is a bit slow. So I think that I do love this movie. I think that Luke, he's way more mature in this one. It feels like he is much more grown up in this one than he was in Empire Strikes Back or the original Star Wars. I think Han is just as snarky and fun in this one too. And it's just a fantastic movie. It is in my top 30, I think, favorite movies of all time, or top 20. It's not top 20. Around top 25 area. It's close. I can tell you I love this film, so I am happy because this is my favorite movie from 1983. For 1984, we have The Terminator. Okay, that I could tell. I don't even need you guys' opinion on that because you guys will not give it to me. But anyway, I don't even need you guys' opinion on that. That was a horrible Austrian accent right there. That was awful, even for me. But anyway, I really dig this movie. This is in my top 10 of all time. I think that there's a moment in this, when the Terminator stitching himself up scene. I think that the blood and all the stuff they use to make it look very nasty is pretty well good, but some of the effects they use on it don't age nearly as well. You can tell it's starting to look dated. Really now, it's really getting dated. So there's one moment where it's starting to get dated, but other than that, it's a virtually flawless film. It's just a film I absolutely love. I think the action here is great, but it's not really an action movie. It's more of a horror movie, a horror sci-fi, because it's about a Terminator hunting down Sarah Connor. A lot of people assume this one is an action film because the rest of the film, starting with T2, went into the action route. So most people assume that because T2 is an action movie, this one is an action movie. But it's really not. It's more of a horror film where there's a very big horror moments, especially that scene that really is full of tension where the Terminator kills Sarah's mom and is using her voice. I predicted that seconds before it happened. As soon as I heard the thing and I saw an empty space in the apartment and just going around the apartment, I was like, oh man, he killed her and he's using the voice. And I was like, oh, I knew it. I'm not saying that it was a bad twist that was predictable. I'm just saying I'm starting to go into more movies so I can expect things like that. And that's happened in a few movies I've seen. So it does that once in a while. So I could predict that part, but I do think that this is a great movie, and I think Kyle Reese, yes. Yeah, Kyle Reese, I think that he's a great thing in here. I think Michael Biehn, he's played two iconic characters in the 80s. He has played, Kyle Reese, and he has also played a character that, spoiler alert, we will be talking about very soon, because if you know Michael Biehn's filmography, you know that we will be talking about him very soon. We've made it to 1985, and remember when I said Commando was not going to be on this list? I lied. Oh no, I know. Wait! I know you guys are trying to hit that dislike button, unsubscribe to the channel, and just make up something and then report me for not doing anything wrong and try to get me arrested for because I didn't have Back to the Future for 1985. Commando's more fun than Back to the Future. And Back to the Future is overrated, in my opinion. And this movie is just the epitome of what you would call a fun, over-the-top movie. It's not taking itself serious, and that's the fun part. You get Arnold actually making a reference saying, I'll be back to this, and so he's calling back the Terminator, which is always nice. You get over-the-top violence. It's cheesy. You get Arnold at his punniest, where he has so many funny lines in this movie. You have all sorts of great scenes. You have a lot of swearing. It's just so fun, and it's definitely not grounded in some points. You can tell you have to, that's one of those movies that you, turn your brain off, and you have a lot of fun with it, and it's a movie I have quite a bit of fun with, and it's also one of those, movies that I find to be underrated, because a lot of people are like, this is too over the top, or this is not good, or I don't see it. I find it fun and very enjoyable, and so if you don't like the film, maybe try and rewatch it. I mean, if you're like, okay, this is really over the top, I just can't get on board with this, I can understand. But as soon as you're like, this movie sucks, I cannot get on board with that, and I just think that it's probably the more entertaining film. If I was going by rewatchability and entertainment value, I'd probably pick Commando over Back to the Future, because this movie's just so fun and entertaining for me, so I would definitely say I would get the edge to Commando over Back to the Future. Remember what I was talking about, Michael Biehn? Here we are again, because 1986 is Aliens. And this is also a top 5 favorite movie of mine. I think it is number 4 on my list. And I just absolutely love this movie. This is a great sci-fi epic with great action. And this is another time where James Cameron takes this, horror-centric classic that people could not think could have a sequel that topped it, and he manages to make a horror sequel still. He turns it into an action sequel with little horror elements in there, and he finds a way to make it top the original, because this and Terminator 2 are both sequels to practically just horror films that are action films in and of themselves. And well, I mean, Terminator 2 and Aliens are, and I'm saying that it actually finds a way to basically top the original. This is better than the original, in my opinion. It's a movie where you get to see the maternal side of Ripley, where in Alien you didn't really see that side of her. You just saw the quick thinking side of her, and she was mostly written kind of like a man, but she was a woman. So this, you really can tell she's a much more maternal person, and I love that the way that they use Newt in this movie, to where she is having to go back and forth between yelling at certain people and then being so soft and kind to her, and it's hilarious watching her do that. And the xenomorphs are awesome. Their design's way better, because there's I think one scene in the original one, Alien, where you can really tell they were using a person to make the alien, that it was a costume. This one is way better looking. There's there's a lot of aliens, and just the way James Cameron shoots it, it looks gorgeous, and it just looks way better than the original in terms of its cinematography, but it just improves upon everything before it. The Xenomorph's design is way cooler. The Queen is also an awesome design, and we get to see the Queen more in Alien vs. Predator, which, I think that was the Queen. Correct me if I'm wrong. Otherwise, I need to be corrected, because I'm pretty sure that was the Queen in Alien vs. Predator. And we're going to act, even though we're going to act as if that movie never got a sequel. But anyway, I'm talking about both Alien vs. Predator and Aliens. I disown both films. I disown Alien 3 and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Both are 1-star films, and I absolutely hate them. They are abysmal. Both for very different reasons. Well, in and of themselves, they have a very dark opening, and they both are so bad. And I think Alien 3... I cannot believe I'm actually saying this. Alien 3 may actually be worse than Alien vs. Predator Requiem. I know, it's just... Alien 3 is by far the more offensive one to me. Ugh. It's so bad, because every time I try and think about Aliens, Aliens, I'm then reminded of, that abomination, that thing of another film that tried to ruin it. Luckily, I don't consider it canon, what happens... I only consider Alien and Aliens canon in that universe, kind of aside from the fact that pretty much everyone is unanimously agreed on. People only consider Alien and Aliens canon, and people only consider the Terminator and Terminator 2 canon in those universes, and for good reason. Those sequels, woof! When they go bad hard. Those are really bad sequels. But I just really don't like this. Sorry, I'm talking about Alien 3 now. I really love this film. It is one of my favorites of all time. So, for 1986, my pick is Aliens. 1987, and no, my pick is not The Princess's Bride or whatever it is. My pick is Predator. Okay, that was a better Austrian accent by far than what I did with The Terminator. But this is a fantastic horror movie, as well as a fantastic sci-fi movie, as well as a great action movie. It's a really good blend of genres where you could very tell it's a horror film, but you can also tell it's an action film, but you can also tell it's a sci-fi film. The design of the Predator heavily competes with the Xenomorph for my favorite design in that franchise. It is so close because they both have their faults, but well, actually not really. I think they're both basically flawless designs. I think they're awesome designs. The Xenomorph and the Predator are so awesome. There's a reason that they got their own movie where they got to duke it out. Also because they have comics where it does that, so they were like, let's just adapt it. So, and Predator, I think Arnold. This is the biggest compliment I can give this film. Is that this is the only film in Arnold's filmography, which is saying a lot considering he has a big filmography, that this is the only film where he does not completely dominate the screen presence with himself. Like, every other film, you are like, oh man, that's Arnold right there. So, in this film, it feels like he's just another guy in this group. You really feel like there's other people that are also really doing good in this. And it has great moments. I think that the first act moves along at a really good pace with them like investigating. The second act, where they're starting to get hunted, where they're being hunted and they're slowly being picked off one by one, is really the horror part of it. And then, if you want to see an awesome third act, you go to Predator, because the third act of this film is bonkers, where Arnold just has to go full-on primal and just absolutely just man up to completely destroy this thing. And it is an awesome final fight that is great, and I think that this is a fantastic movie. If I was able to make this, so I would also probably, even though there are some pretty good sequels in here, I think this Predator of Alien, Terminator, and Predator, the big three, and when it comes to machines and creatures, that's probably my favorite franchise in terms of consistency, because I think Predator is way more consistent than the Terminator, and also Alien. Woo! They strike it down hard. Meanwhile, Predator only has to worry about having the Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem in that, and also, that is kind of more disappointing, because if the Predator had Shane Black as a director. Shane Black's in the original Predator. He plays one of the main characters. Well, not one of the main characters. He's a main side character, if that makes sense. But it really should not have been that bad. It was a bad movie, and But anyway, this is a fantastic film, and it's probably one of the most rewatchable on this list. So I absolutely love Predator. 1988. Merry Christmas, everyone, because 1988's pick is Die Hard. Easily, when I did my top 20 favorite films of all time, this was numero uno, the film that came in at number 1. And then the very next day, I kicked myself because of the fact that I then had to change a rate. I then changed it because I then changed my mind. I'm like, nope, I think I needed to put Terminator 2 then. And then I went back to Die Hard. It's like, can I just pick one, please? I get it. They're both 10 out of 10 films. Give me a minute to pick one. But moving aside from that awful debacle that I keep having to go through, this is just a perfect movie. Of all the movies in this world, I would argue this is the one that I could easily say is the most perfect. Back to the Future has the flaw of having Biff, who is definitely a generic character that I can definitely say I fault the film for having him as it, because he's definitely the stereotype character of like this just weird bully that's doing it for no reason. So he's a stereotype, so I can flaw the film for that. Die Hard, on the other hand, I have tried and tried and tried and tried to think of some flaw so I can disapprove it. I can't. It's so you cannot find anyone who can find a flaw with that film. It's because it's so great. This movie It's just a film that is so amazing. Like, things that happen within the first 5 minutes matter later on in they're essential to the plot. It's not a background movie. You must be paying attention. Like a simple throwaway line, like the person next to John McClane on the plane telling him that if he takes his shoes off and rubs his toes on the carpet, it'll relax him, matters later on in the movie and is a crucial part to the rest of the story. The action here is fantastic and holds up really well. It's a modern, sorry, not modern. It's 40 years old. It is a classic of the action genre and possibly the most important action movie of all time. And Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman, you may have Snape under your ledger for, you may have Snape as a character in your filmography. Hans is so much better than Snape. Because I get it, you guys. If you're a Harry Potter fanatic, I get it. Fantastic Beasts partially ruined my experience with Harry Potter. Plus, even if it was just the Harry Potter movies, I would say that Hans is a miles better of a character than Snape. I just think that he's so suave, and you really find out early on with Takaki, if you mess with this guy, you get a bullet to the head. This guy is not messing around. He is someone who will kill you, and he is not afraid to do it. And just Alan Rickman's performance just shows that, and the fact that they nearly fired him because he was like hard to work with. Luckily they didn't, because if so, we would have gotten a worse actor. I know it, because no one can make a better Hans Gruber than Alan Rickman. Just such a fantastic movie. It is a perfect movie. And also, fun piece of trivia, when Hans falls off of the Nakatomi Plaza at the end of the film, which I am sorry if you have not seen the film, you should have, and also you probably already heard that spoiler because it's probably one of the most shown scenes of all time. But when he falls off of the Nakatomi Plaza, the acting by Alan Rickman, if you were wondering, man, this guy's a really good actor because he looks genuinely terrified. That's not acting. He literally had no idea what that was going to happen. The directors or something had him on like a rope so he wouldn't fall to his death. So they then they thought it would be a good idea if they did not tell him that they were going to drop him. So they told him, okay, Alan, we'll drop you on 3. So knowing that he knew that, they decided to drop him on 2 because they wanted to get the genuine reaction. So they go 1, 2, and then he just falls, and that's why when you see the film and he looks like he's so terrified, he's like, wait, what? That's why it looks so real, because Alan Rickman had no idea he was actually about to be, that he was falling. He was like, oh no, something went wrong. It was hilarious, and that's just probably my favorite part of the film, that they managed to get that in. So that's my favorite behind the scenes footage thing of all time. It is easily one of the greatest movies of all time, if not the greatest. It is between that and Terminator 2. So this is easily my favorite film from 1988. And now, at 1989, we have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This one and Raiders of the Lost Ark are easily my 2 favorite in the franchise. I think that Temple of Doom is too dark, and also it has some pacing issues here and there. And if you want another reason why Temple of Doom is lower, Willie manages. I will rant about this woman anytime I get. She is one of the things I hate the most in movie worlds ever. I would probably rather, if we got a spin-off of her, I would probably rather watch Alien vs. Predator Requiem again than have to watch that film. That is how annoying and how much I cannot stand her. It's just the fact that she is annoying. So they made a really good decision cutting her out of the film, which I don't think she would have been in the film anyway. But if they brought her back, I would strangle her. Well, if I was in the film, I would. But this is a fantastic movie. It's the most lighthearted in the franchise, but I actually love that about it, that it's being lighthearted with jokey elements in it. That Sean Connery, fantastic side character. He is my second favorite character besides Indiana Jones. She might be. It's actually, okay, it's between him, Marion, and Short Round for my second favorite character in the franchise. They are easily top 3. They are, if we're not counting Indiana Jones in the equation, those are easily the top three by far. And I absolutely love that it has fantastic moments. It has probably some of the least standout moments in the entire franchise in terms of the original trilogy. Temple of Doom may outdo it in some of that, but I think that this movie has fantastic action. It is a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark because if you did not know, Temple of Doom was never a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So this is technically the sequel. So this takes place right after it. And one of my gripes with Dial of Destiny was that I didn't like the way that they handled Indiana Jones. So I would have found it a lot better if they had done like a prequel. So they had like done a sequel to The Last Crusade. That would have been a much better idea. Even if you see this in the opening scene of Dial of Destiny, even if there are some things that like, even though you can still tell by Harrison Ford's voice that he is older, or that the way that he walks, you can tell that he is definitely still, he's not himself anymore. He's older. You can tell by the way he walks in the de-aging, because de-aging can't do everything nowadays. Despite what it can do, it cannot do everything. But this is just a fantastic movie. I think that it's always good to have James Bond in the equation. Well, minus George Lazenby. We can forget him. We don't need him. But Sean Connery he is probably the most iconic Bond, and he's also one of the most iconic. He's probably, other than Harrison Ford, he is definitely, of the side characters, the most iconic. We can admit that. So I absolutely love Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So for 1989, this is my favorite movie of 1989.